Welcome back. All right, so there was certainly a lot of discussion last night during the live stream when Austin Matthews was revealed to have won both the Ted Lindsay Award and the Hart Award. And there have certainly been discussions about Hart Trophy winners before. We're here again. The argument being that Connor McDavid somehow was overlooked or didn't get the proper consideration. He was a finalist for this award, though. So I'm going to talk about Matthews here. Now, Austin Matthews, of course, him being the lottery winning pick for the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2016. That's right in line with when this channel started to blow up. So I really appreciate the relationship that Austin Matthews has had with the channel, even though I've never spoken to him. So he's the number one pick in 2016, unsurprisingly. He comes out of the gate with a 4-goal game to start things off and looked fantastic in that one. So 2016, 2017, he ends up with 82 games. His 40 goals were second in the NHL that year, 29 assists, 69 points. Now, I'm not going to go through this like a career video because it's not really a career video. I just wanted to have his career stats up. He did have 4 goals in 6 games in that first round loss against the Washington Capitals. He wins the Calder. He's on the All-Rookie team, and he was at the All-Star game. He's also at the All-Star game in 2018. He's at the All-Star game in 2019. Those years, he missed a lot of games. He misses 20 in 2017, 2018. He missed 14 in 2018, 2019. And the question I asked at the time was, is this going to be a player who's dealing with injuries a lot? And 2019, 2020, he plays almost every, I believe 70 was almost every game for Toronto that year. We didn't have a universal number of games played by teams that year, so 70 sounds pretty close to how many Toronto played. Might have been all of them. But he finished third in the NHL in goals that year with 47, and he was ninth in points with 80. So he's been getting better year over year. And then you look at last year, 52 games played. He was first in goals with 41 and fifth in points with 66. Now, the argument that was made that year was, well, yeah, Matthews is feasting on teams based in Canada. Once we're back into a normal season, there's no way Matthews is going to lead the league in goals. And so he did. He led the league in goals this year with 60. His points total, 106 points. That was 6th overall in the NHL. So he dropped from 5th to 6th in overall scoring. He stayed first in goals. He has 101 goals in 125 games played over the last 2 years. Now, the thing with Matthews, second team All-Star last year. They haven't released first and second team this year, I don't think. I would imagine he'll probably be... I'm going to be controversial with this and say he ends up being a second team All-Star and then McDavid ends up being first team. But he won the Rocket Richard this year. He won the Rocket Richard last year. He was the second team All-Star, as I said, last year. I've got that up here twice. I'll just erase the second time I put it up. So again, the Hart, the Lindsay, the Rocket Richard, All-Star game. This is the other argument, too, to be made in this video. Matthews in 6 years has already put together a career that if he came out tomorrow and said, you know, I think I'd enjoy retiring to British Columbia and becoming a lumberjack. I have to say that as crazy as that would be, and as much as all of us would sing along with him, he already has, I think, arguably, I say that because I know people are going to argue this, a Hall of Fame career. This is a Hart Trophy. Ted Lindsay, he has 2 Rocket Richards. He won the Calder. He's got all the hardware you need already, I think, for a Hall of Fame career. It's the same argument I can make with Vasilevsky. He's won so much. They've got cups and all that. That is the one thing with Matthews he doesn't have. And that's when you get into the question of, so is it Matthews' fault? So one of the arguments with Matthews is that the Leafs lose in the first round. The thing is, these are regular season awards. So because they're voted on in the regular season, and there's always that debate, I've had the debate myself, about whether or not the vote should be taken after the first round, which most fans seem to disagree with. They're saying, no, it's a regular season. And the one thing I'll disagree with is people saying, well, the regular season doesn't matter. 16 teams missed the playoffs this year, so the regular season matters to those 16 teams that didn't make it. If the regular season truly didn't matter, all 32 teams make the playoffs, and we have the awards after the playoffs are done. So he led the NHL in even strength goals this year, and he's done it for 3 straight years. But it's not just his goal scoring. So while he's led the NHL in shots the last 2 years, he had 4 hat tricks this season, which was number 1 overall in the NHL. He also had 62 block shots. His takeaway versus giveaway, he had 92 takeaways and 48 giveaways. That is an excellent ratio. Really fantastic ratio for him. And he had a career high in face-off percentage at 56.2%. So people get hung up on the goals and the points and all that, but I think the reason that players voted him the best all-around player in the NHL, the reason that he wins the Hart as the MVP, is his all-around game. So it is easy to focus on the points and say, Connor McDavid, this year, 80 games, 44 goals, 79 assists, 123 points. He had 17 more points than Austin Matthews, but it's not just regarding points, right? So he was first star of the month in February 2021, April 2021, December 2021. First star of the week 5 times, second star of the week 4 times, and third star of the week once in his entire career. So he is always one of the better players in the league. And he was suspended 2 games this year for the cross-check on Darlene. Clearly did not have any negative impact on anybody voting for or against him or anything. Because you do wonder, like, if a suspension would cause any change in voting, and doesn't seem to have. Marner was second on the team with 35 goals. He was also second on the team with 97 points. One thing that you can look at with the Leafs is that Matthews at 60 goals and then Marner with 35. That's 25 goals different between the number 1 goal scorer and number 2. Now, when you talk about Connor McDavid, if we get into pure points, you also have to look at goals and the fact that Draisaitl almost paced him in points and outpaced him in goals. So that's something you have to look at, because one of the things you're looking at for MVP, and this is why MVP is highly subjective, if this team didn't have this player, they're dead, right? That's the whole idea. And the idea is this: if the Toronto Maple Leafs don't have Austin Matthews, they're done. And I think there's definitely something to that, and we can have that debate, and it's a debate I'm sure that will roll on into next season as well. But if McDavid got hurt, it absolutely ruins a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans' days, and probably the days of the Edmonton Oilers players. But then you have Draisaitl as the number 1 center. You can have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as your number 2 center. It's not awful. It's not the end of the world. Whereas if the Leafs didn't have Matthews, we know we've had the discussion regarding their depth for years, and I do wonder if it would hurt the Leafs more to lose Matthews than it would hurt the Oilers to lose McDavid. You look at the Oilers this year, they go all the way to the conference final. In part, I think the reason that they go further than the Leafs, I will say the Leafs did play against Tampa in the first round. That doesn't help. But also, I think that for the Oilers, I think that as a team, they were able to tap into what they needed to have that success against LA and then against Calgary before running into a machine in the Colorado Avalanche. But it really is a situation where it feels like the Oilers would be more capable of handling that loss of McDavid. And again, it's highly subjective. Now, game-winning goals, Matthews had 10. The next highest total on the Leafs was Nylander with 7. His ice time of 20 minutes and 37 seconds a game only trailed Marner among forwards at 20 minutes and 53 seconds. That likely being because Marner, I believe, kills penalties, whereas Matthews doesn't. So that is likely why that ice time ends up being where it is, which is an argument for, I think Marner's underrated at this point on some level. Not, like, I know how much he gets paid and everything, but I really think that Marner's all-around game isn't always appreciated by fans. So if we're going to talk about McDavid and, he got hosed, well, he won the Ted Lindsay 3 times, 2017, 2018, and 2021. He's won the Hart twice, 2017 and 2021. He's going to win it again. We know that Connor McDavid is fantastic. We know that he's going to win it again. And it's not the first time we've seen a winner for the Hart where there's a lot of arguing. The 2 most obvious to me are Taylor Hall in 2018. There was plenty of complaining when Taylor Hall won it. And then in 2002, Jose Theodore winning the Hart. Jose Theodore had a career year. It was a year for the ages in 2001, 2002. And so he ends up winning the Hart Trophy and then didn't find that way to follow that up with another really good season. He was a good goaltender, but that season where he won the Hart ended up raising the bar a little bit too high, a little bit higher than Theodore could reach again. So, really, I don't think it should be that controversial of a pick when it comes to Matthews being seen as the league MVP this year by writers, being seen as the best player in the league by the players who vote on the Ted Lindsay Award. But I understand why people would look at it and go, well, wait, it's McDavid. McDavid's the best player in the league. I will hearken back to when Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux owned the Hart Trophy. They owned it. They owned the Lindsay, too. And there were years that they had a ton of points, but you could make the argument that maybe somebody else in the league could have or should have won the Hart or at the time, the Pearson Award, which became the Lindsay Award now. So the argument's out there, but again, I look through Ted Lindsay winners. There's not really a lot of controversy when it comes to Lindsay winners, which tells me there's less to argue with when it's the players voting than the writers voting. But that's just my opinion. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And I'm going to close out with this. If Matthews played for Florida, if Matthews played for Arizona, right? If he had ended up in Buffalo and he had all this, I don't think there'd be as much arguing. I know that there is anytime it's Toronto, there's going to be that big divide between people who really can't stand anything Toronto, which then would definitely involve Matthews, Marner, and anybody else. And then there's going to be that argument too of, well, this is just everything favors Toronto and everybody favors. So it's just because he's from Toronto, which I don't think is accurate. He's the first winner of these awards from Toronto in quite some time. So we'll see how things go for him next year. And of course, the big question mark with Matthews, the big question mark with the Leafs, how do you get past that first round? And they haven't figured that out yet. And until they figure that out, and we're into year 6 of them not being able to get past the first round, that is going to be used as an argument against Matthews, even though I almost said McDavid, but McDavid got out of the first round. But it's going to be an argument against Matthews until it happens. I don't think that's always fair. But, you look at his overall playoff numbers, 17 goals, 16 assists, and 39 games. They're good. But overall, you would want a little more. And he had 9 points in 7 games in that first round series against Tampa, but he had 5 of those points in the first 2 games, and he had 4 points in the 5 games after that. So there's definitely something to that, and you can make the argument that if you're playing against Toronto in the playoffs, all you have to do is shut down Matthews. And if that's the case, then that makes your argument for Matthews being the MVP. But again, currently the leading scorer in the playoffs is Connor McDavid. And it's probably still going to be Connor McDavid when the Stanley Cup is awarded, which is remarkable since McDavid's not in the final. But it's a different team. It's a different system in Edmonton. And again, we'll be having this argument again next year is my guess. If the Leafs move past the first round, whatever happens to get them there, we'll be having debates about. And if the Leafs eventually win a Stanley Cup, we can have a whole debate about that at the time too. But, and while that'll make some people chuckle, I'm serious. There is no reason to think that the Toronto Maple Leafs could not get hot and potentially go through and win a Stanley Cup at some point soon. But until it happens, we're going to be having this debate about how important Matthews is and where he should really be standing amongst players in the NHL when it comes to superstar status and whether or not he's a bigger star or a better star than others. And it is subjective. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.